Call them all-American boys, and few will disagree. Call them heroes, and the vote will be unanimous. But on the morning of 4 June 1942, the men of the U.S. Navy Torpedo Squadron 8, with nicknames like Squire, Whitey, and Ozzie, think less about heroics and more about flying combat for the very first time. 16 of them, including El Paso's George Tex Gay, take off from the deck of USS Hornet. 6 others, including Virginia's Bird Ernest, fly new Grumman Adventures from the airstrip on Midway Island. The objective of both groups was simple: find the Japanese strike force, hit them low, and hit them hard. At 6:55 a.m., Squadron Leader Langston Fearley's Torpedo 8 Avengers from Midway are the first to spot the enemy carriers. Without hesitation, Bird Ernest and the others follow the leader into the jaws of hell. Within seconds, 5 of the 6 are gone. Only Ernest's plane, riddled by bullets, somehow stays aloft. 9:17 a.m. Squadron Leader John Charles Waldron's Torpedo 8 Devastators from Carrier Hornet are next. George Gay and the others again follow the leader into a wall of destruction. From Waldron's group, only one man survives: Tex Gay. Bobbing low in the sea, he watches awestruck by what happens next. Suddenly, Navy Dauntless dive bombers from Carriers Enterprise and Yorktown hurtle out of the sky. The Torpedo 8 sacrifice knocks Japanese defenses off balance. In minutes, 3 Japanese carriers erupt in flames. Meanwhile, although wounded, pilot Bird Ernest and radio man Harry Ferrier managed to land their Avengers safely on the airfield at Midway. 2 days later, a Navy PBY crew spots George Gay and rescues him. When Navy doctors ask Gay how he kept his wounds so clean, he quips, by soaking them in salt water for 30 hours. George Gay becomes an overnight sensation. He is toasted as the sole survivor of Torpedo 8 at Midway. With grim humor, a couple of guys named Bird and Harry tell those who ask, "We're the other 2 sole survivors." Below the clouds, across cobalt blue waters of the Pacific, the legacy of Whitey, Ozzie, Abby, Squire, and the other heroes of Torpedo Squadron 8 endures forever.
Iron bottom sound, yeah.
Summer 1942. From Rabaul, the Japanese base in the South Pacific, the Japanese began Operation Tempest, a plan to cut off Australia from her ally, the United States, in Great Britain. Near Lunga Point on Guadalcanal, the southernmost island in the Solomons, Japanese construction units are building a hill. Once completed, planes taking off from Guadalcanal airport will attack the critical ocean supply line between the U.S. and Australia. In Washington, Admiral King determined that the Navy must respond and orders Guadalcanal taken by a combined naval and amphibious force. 7 August 1942, 11,000 men of the 1st Marine Division land unopposed on Guadalcanal. 8 August, Japanese construction troops scatter into the jungle. The Marines easily capture the airstrip and rename it Henderson Field. Using the enemy's own equipment, Marine engineers begin crushing the airstrip. 8 August, Japanese forces on Savo Island respond with a devastating attack. Allied naval forces guarding the transports and supply ships at the Guadalcanal base. 9 August, Allied forces escape the attack along with the American force. Marcus Alderman temporarily received control of the seas along the Guadalcanal. The Marines ashore are stranded without supplies for the reinforcement. Control of Henderson Field quickly becomes the key to victory over the field. Our new office, trained in the air force and the Henderson Field, joins our national
Stay with us because this is very important.
any plane that crashes or comes down is salvaged for parts and gas to beat the rest of it. By night, enemy warships routinely bombard Henderson Field. In convoy, which the Allies call the Tokyo Express, deliver teams and supplies to the island. Japanese troops ferried from Rabaul to Guadalcanal attempt to take Henderson Field by night, but as known with every bridge in Foley Point, the Marines hurled it back. In late September and early October, Major General Alexander A. Underwood's 1st Marine Division battles Japanese land forces in 2 separate engagements at the Matane Mountain. In the second engagement, U.S. Marines successfully crossed the river and inflict heavy casualties on enemy.
That's really bad.
The defeat forces the Japanese.
They had wounded Japanese soldiers that the corpsmen were trying to give aid to, tried to kill them.
Kill them.
Yeah.
Off the coast, a grim struggle is waged to control the seas before
It's a mess.
forces ashore. Battles are fought from August to November. The war at sea culminates in narrow Allied victories at the 1st and 2nd naval battles of Guadalcanal. Losses are so high that sailors dubbed the area Iron Bottom Sound, a watery graveyard of ships and men. Within the new year, American forces gradually gain control of land, air, and sea. Food, medical supplies, arms, and reinforcements flow into the island that no one had ever heard of before. By February 1943, it is apparent. The Japanese are forced to evacuate. Americans control Guadalcanal. The victory at Guadalcanal keeps supplies flowing to Australia and marks the beginning of American forces on the offensive in the South Pacific.
Jeez. That's a scuttlebutt. That'd be coffee. Yeah, that one. Bandits. Enemy aircraft. Yep. What is that? Bean jockey. A sailor signed to help. That'd be a supply officer. Oh, I was wrong. It was a horse opera.
Horse opera.
I couldn't even tell you. What's this movie? Oh, now this one I knew. I was like, what is battery acid?
Let's see.
It's coffee.
Ooh.
I was like, I know that one. I know what scuttlebutt is too. Yeah. There's the wildcat. So you can go this way, you can go that way.
Summer 1942. From Rabaul, the Japanese base in the South Pacific, the Japanese begin Operation FS, a plan to cut off Australia from her allies, the United States and Great Britain. Near Lunga Point on Guadalcanal, the southernmost island in the Solomons, Japanese construction units are building an airstrip. Once completed, planes taking off from Guadalcanal airstrip can attack the critical ocean supply line between the U.S. and Australia. In Washington, Admiral King determines that the Navy must respond and orders Guadalcanal taken by a combined naval and amphibious force. 7 August 1942. 11,000 men of the 1st Marine Division land unopposed on Guadalcanal.
They just walk in.
8 August. Japanese construction troops scatter into the jungle. The Marines easily capture the airstrip and rename it Henderson Field. Using the enemy's own equipment, Marine engineers begin finishing the airstrip. 8-9 August. Japanese forces off Savo Island respond with a devastating attack on Allied naval forces guarding the transports and supply ships of the Guadalcanal invasion force. 9 August. Allied warships that escape the attack, along with the supply transports, depart the Solomon Islands, temporarily conceding control of the seas around Guadalcanal to the Japanese. The Marines ashore are stranded without supplies or reinforcement.
Great.
Control of Henderson Field quickly becomes the key to victory or defeat at Guadalcanal. By mid-August, any Navy or Air Corps plane that lands at Henderson Field joins a patchwork air group that becomes known as the Cactus Air Force. Any plane that crashes or breaks down is salvaged for parts and gas to keep the rest going. By night, enemy warships routinely bombard Henderson Field, and convoys, which the Allies called the Tokyo Express, deliver troops and supplies to the island. Japanese troops ferried from Rabaul to Guadalcanal attempt to take Henderson Field by land, but at Tanaru River, Edson's Ridge, and Coley Point, the Marines hurl them back. In late September and early October, Major General Alexander A. Vandergrift's 1st Marine Division battles Japanese land forces in 2 separate engagements at the Matanikau River. In the second engagement, U.S. Marines successfully cross the river and inflict heavy casualties on an enemy infantry regiment. The defeat forces the Japanese to retreat from their positions east of the Matanikau. Their prospects for retaking the island have been dealt a serious blow. Off the coast, a grim struggle is waged to control the sea in order to supply the forces ashore. Battles are fought from August to November. The war at sea culminates in narrow Allied victories at the 1st and 2nd naval battles of Guadalcanal. Losses are so high that sailors dubbed the area Iron Bottom Sound, a watery graveyard of ships and men. Within the new year, American forces gradually gain control of land, air, and sea. Food, medical supplies, arms, and reinforcements flow into the island that no one had ever heard of before. By February 1943, it is over. The Japanese are forced to evacuate. Americans control Guadalcanal. The victory at Guadalcanal keeps supplies flowing to Australia and marks the beginning of American forces on the offensive in the South Pacific.